Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss some of the interview questions that are shared by some of the candidates which they got in their walk-in interview with TCS. So the first question that was asked was can please introduce yourself and the roles and responsibilities in your project. So here the interviewer wants to know what kind of work you are performing, whether you are working in a support project or you have a proper hands-on. So make sure you are able to introduce yourself in a way that it will give a good impression. The next question was like, can you explain the security in Salesforce? And once the candidate had explained, there were few follow-up questions that was asked, like what is the difference between role hierarchy, sharing roles, and manual sharing? So one thing I would recommend is we don't really need to differentiate between these three. Even if you are able to explain the role hierarchy, sharing rules, and manual sharing, that will be sufficient. So you just need to make sure that you are able to explain and make sure that the interviewer understand that you have a working idea of what these are. And the next question was, what is the order of execution in Salesforce? So this is one of the important question, I would say, irrespective of the experience level. This is being asked many a times. Then there was one question which was like related to recursion. So are you aware of recursion in Salesforce and why it happens? Once this was again explained, there was a follow-up question like how can recursion be avoided? So basically the interviewer is expecting us to explain how can we avoid the recursion while we are getting that error. Then this was a conceptual question. Can we have multiple triggers on the same object? If yes, then how can we control the execution order? There was few questions from the asynchronous apex. So first one was, what is asynchronous apex? Once this was explained, there was a follow-up question like differentiate between the future and the queuable apex. And then there was one more question from the asynchronous apex like can we call queuable class from another? If yes, then how? So make sure you are able to answer these questions because these are kind of make or break question, like something like say can we call batch apex from queuable or vice versa, or can we call a batch apex from a future method? So these things are very tricky questions, so make sure that you are fully prepared for these questions. Then there was a question, when should we use batch apex? And once this was explained, there was one more follow-up question. What was like, what is better for data update, say data loader or the batch apex? So here we have to make sure that we are explaining when do we go for batch apex and when should we prefer data loader. So this is a very important question that we are able to explain them so that will give them an impression that we know what when to use data loader and when to use the batch apex. Then these are the questions from the LWC. So what are the life cycle hooks in LWC? Again, this is a very important question. Most of the times interviewers are really interested to know whether you are aware of the life cycle hooks or not. Then there was another question like what is the difference between imperative and the wire services? So make sure you have a working idea of these things. Then there was a question, how do you pass data from parent to child and child to parent components? How to handle pagination for large data sets in LWC efficiently? So again, make sure we are aware of what pagination is, what are the different types of pagination, and when to go for which type of pagination. Then there was a few triggers that needs to be written by the candidate. Say one of the scenario was write a trigger to prevent multiple opportunity being created for an account in the past 24 hours. The another candidate got like to write a trigger to update all the contacts phone number when the account's phone number is changed. There were a few SOQL queries also that they were asked to write. Example, to find the contacts, to find the accounts that have no related contacts, and to find the opportunities where the account has more than three contacts. So thank you guys. That's it from my side. Again, this is just to give you an idea of what kind of questions are being asked. I am not telling that these are the questions that will be asked again. It totally depends on the interviewer. So that's it from my side. Thank you.